Okay, so we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you to this session titled Knowledge Making is Imaginative Practice as part of the Creative Brain Week. Absolutely thrilled to be here, and thank you, Dominic Campbell, and everybody in the organizing committee for putting on such an amazing event. And I'm so thrilled to introduce you to this session's speakers as well. This session is a series of case studies of artists, scientists, and professionals working together towards health and towards bridging divides. And I want to echo Dominic Campbell's words right now. He said, "Thank you for bringing the cows." So please do bring the cows to this session, and all the inspiration, the cross-fertilization, and the free spirit of creative practice. First of all, I want to start by introducing to you Dr. Adolfo Garcia. Adolfo is the director of the Center for Cognitive Neuroscience at UDESA University in Argentina. He's also a Senior Atlantic Fellow for Equity in Brain Health at the Global Brain Health Institute. And Adolfo will speak to us today on failures to communicate science and hopefully a fair bit of success as well. So we're looking forward to your presentation, Adolfo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me all right there? Yeah? Awesome. And this should work. Will it work? Can we bring the slides up, please? And there they are. Yes, awesome. All right, so I'm going to be talking about how not to communicate science. Basically, this is going to be a tour de force into everything that I've done wrong over the years, yeah? So get ready to have a good laugh at my expense, yeah? But mainly the thing that I want to do today is what follows. All of you are consumers of science news, yeah, daily. And many of you also are communicating science or have the chance to do so. So I'm going to be speaking to those two subpopulations in the audience, if you will. This is the roadmap. We're going to be talking about some general notions about communicating science, some of the mistakes that I've made. I'm going to be wrapping things up, and Q&A. No, that'll be saved for last, I guess. So let's talk about communicating science. There are a couple of notions a couple of terms that are thrown around there. You may have heard about science dissemination, yeah, or science popularization, and those terms are quite useful, quite widely used. But the thing is that they are quite asymmetrical, right? I mean, it's the researcher who disseminates. It's the researcher who popularizes, in a way. When you talk about communication, you can go to the etymology of the word, and it is to make common, right? So communicating science is not just about the asymmetrical, unidirectional process of the one who knows telling those who don't what things are all about, but actually of co-constructing knowledge. And there are unprecedented conditions for this to happen nowadays with technological advances and whatnot. Why should you even do it? First of all, it's a social responsibility. If you are a researcher, or if you work in any other arena that's concerned with brain health or whatever your specialty is, and you're only talking to those who belong to your field, then you're being endogamic, right? And we believe, I hope, that what we do is important beyond the confines of the people that do what we do. So it is our social responsibility. It's incumbent on us to try to spread the word beyond the limits of our disciplines. You can empower people through findings. I mean, fake news is something that permeates all social media. And we can, if you have the chance of bringing some scientific information in the hurricane of misinformation that's out there, you're giving people the chance to act on other types of data. You can involve populations in the process, and this is quite good because you can get feedback from different actors and improve your science, improve your methods, improve the questions that you're asking, and you can also contribute and engage in dialogue with them. You can self-regulate through criticism because your peers, other scientists from the same field, from other fields, are going to have the chance to comment on what you're doing. And that is a great source of improvement and progress. And of course, you can draw inspiration from other scientists by seeing what they are doing. There are many good examples of how to communicate science. Scientific American. It's interesting to see that some adventures in science, in the communication of science, began as weird extravaganzas, such as Neurosceptic, which was a little blog, and then was incorporated as a section in the Discover magazine. In Latin America, for the Hispanic population, El Gato y la Caja, they are doing amazing work, high-quality writing with high-quality science. And, of course, our very own GBHI blog, which I invite all of you to check regularly. Great stuff being communicated there regularly. Now, everything that you may want to be aware of, I'm going to be sharing with you some anecdotes of things that went wrong and that I learned from. Something that I used to do wrong is what follows. You are giving an interview, right? Somebody's asking you about your work. And something that I tended to do was to try to explain the whole story right from the first question. So, a very bad strategy, right? When they're asking you about something, give the interview time to flow. And do not give details right up front. If you're thinking about what you wrote, the abstract may be a better guide than the full paper when it comes to see how you're going to digest and communicate what you're doing. So leave room for follow-up questions, because another thing you may be doing is just impede the possibility of dialogue, which is what really differentiates an interview from an exposition or a monologue. So for those out there, don't trip on that stone that I've tripped on so many times. Another thing to be aware of is the blindness of erudition. What is obvious to the expert may be revealing to the lay person. And I remember I was auditioning for a TEDx talk. You have to go through a number of auditions. And my talk was about the links between the brain, body, and movement and language. And I was going through these ideas, and one of the judges, there are judges, pretty much like American Idol, but they're way meaner, right? And one of them said, wait. So you're telling me that language has to do with the brain, right? And then it hit me. Right. I mean, there are things that you just take for granted, right? Because they are the very axioms, the premises upon which you work when you're in a specialty field. But those very basic notions may be the thing that you want to communicate or start by communicating when you're facing someone who does not belong to your field of expertise. The how on the par with the what. I remember back in the day, something that I used to do was to just comment on and mention the findings of our study, completely neglecting the methods through which we had achieved or obtained those findings. Very bad idea. If you only communicate what you found, basically you're asking your audience to take a leap of faith and to just trust in what it is that you are doing. It's no different than communicating any other thing that you would expect people to take at face value. What really differentiates science from other forms of knowledge out there is the methods. It's how we do things. You can have questions that are similar across folk psychology, I don't know, common sense, art. But what really differentiates science is how we go about answering those questions. And when you do that, when you comment on how you achieve those results, you're empowering your audience, because you're giving them the tools to be critical about them. Oh, so you did this, but you didn't control for this. And did you inquire about this? So make sure, if you come from the world of science, to try to say how you did what you did. Don't go just to the results. And if you're framing this from an audience perspective, be mindful of those who only tell you what the results are. Because if you just take them at face value, you may be biting the bait, in a way. The value of I don't know. This is very important. distrust. Do not trust those people who have an answer for everything. I mean, know-alls in things are as complex as the matters that we deal with here are quite dangerous. And most likely, it's either one of two choices. You are facing a God who's omniscient and omnipresent and really knows everything. Option two, you're facing a charlatan who has the pretensions of a god, but not the tools. And I remember I was part of this radio column for 2 years, and it was about language and cognition, right? But the host, he would ask me about anything. Oh, so neuroscience, right? What's the impact of carrot eating on your frontal lobe? And the worst thing you can do is to try to sort of start riffing an answer there, right? No, don't do it. Say, listen, this is beyond my turf. I don't know this. Not only because that's the, let's say, morally right thing to do, but also because it will highlight, it will empower the questions that you did reply to. If you have the decency to say, I don't know about this, it will strengthen the responses that you did, because the undertone is, okay, so the other thing this guy did know about. And from an audience perspective, you know, be wary of those people who do dare answer everything. Discoveries or results. Something that we have to be careful about is not presenting individual results as revealed truth. You find something in one paper, especially if it's the first time you find something. So you go there and maybe you're tempted to say things like, well, what we showed is that this works like this. This parcel of the brain or reality is like this. But careful there, because an empirical result is not the same as a universal truth or a factual demonstration. For something to jump from the sphere of a result to a fact, what you need is replication. Many, many more works done independently that converge into the same result. And unfortunately, neuroscience is one of the worst fields at doing that, because neuroscience rewards novelty over replication. So careful there. From a communicative perspective, I think it's important to be explicit about this, to state that what we are commenting on is something that was found in 1, 2, maybe 3 papers, but not to place that under the guise of something that is universally valid and fully discovered. Especially because when you do many replication studies, there was this famous study done a few years ago. Out of the 100 most cited studies in cognitive and social sciences, 30 of them, upon replication, showed same results. 30 of them did not reach significance. And the other 30% showed completely opposite results. So let's be careful and humble about how we communicate what we are doing when our material is the one paper that we have to discuss. State what a result does not mean. I mean, cancel spurious inferences. So if you say, and this I learned the following way. I was commenting on a study that had shown that people remembered information from a lecture better when they took notes shorthand than when they did it with a laptop. And this is what they wrote on the cover of a newspaper where that interview took place. Scientist recommends not to take notes on your notebook. You learn less. That's not quite right. So that's not what I said, but all of a sudden that is what apparently I had said, right? So that taught me this lesson. Say what you want to say, but also try to anticipate those misinterpretations that journalists may fall prey to and cancel them. Say what you don't want to say. And that's a good safeguard for you as a communicator, but also for your audiences, so that they don't have to find this in a newspaper and just gulp it down. And this is the final one I will mention today. I have many more, but request power of review. This is what I refer to as the Chinese calamity. So I was in China, keynote conference that I'm giving. It's about bilingualism. And my main claim is as follows. Many studies have suggested that bilingualism improves your brain function and it confers protection against dementia. There are many papers that speak to those two things. However, there's a similar number of papers in the literature that show that there's no such a thing. The papers that show positive results, they are hyper-cited in the literature, and they make the front lines of newspapers. The ones that show negative results, they don't make it. They are not cited, they don't make it there. So a journalist comes after I give this lecture, right? They're doing this interview, and he's, Dr. Garcia, will you tell us about that? She sounded like this. Will you tell us about your presentation today? And I go like, well, yeah. Many studies have suggested that bilingualism boosts your brain. However, and I spent 10 minutes saying everything that I had to say against that argument. Next day, I turn on the TV, and I see, we have this interview with Dr. Adolfo Garcia. Let's see what he had to say. Dr. Garcia, tell us about your talk. There's many studies have said that bilingualism boosts your brain. End of the story. Thank you. They pretty much used me as a puppet to say exactly the contrary to what I wanted to say. Request veto power. Yeah, make sure you have a chance to edit or see what it is that will come out there. So in a nutshell, science communication, let's do it. It is a social responsibility. We have all the tools that we need nowadays to turn this into a dialogical activity, which is the best way in which we can do this. Step into the other person's shoes in terms of what they might infer, in terms of how they will appraise what is being communicated there, and accept imperfection. So try to minimize these things, but also accept that many of these, many problems like this and many others that I could mention will happen, and eventually you will learn to do it better and better and better. The following slides are the complete responsibility of Dominic. I have to say, I didn't want to do this, but he said, come on, you have to end up on a bright note, right? So I'm just going to say this. Back in 2010, I was giving talks for very, very few people, right? And I was doing it very, very poorly, right? Then I started doing it better, and people were paying more attention. And we reached the point last year where we reached lots of people. So the lesson here is keep at it, be critical, be self-critical, be self-regulating, and eventually you will achieve this. Dominic forcing you to play slides on your presentation. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Adolfo, for that very thought-provoking and informative presentation. Are there any questions? We have time for one or two questions from the audience. Any burning questions, anyone? If I don't see anyone, I'll start with something. So, as scientists, for those scientists in the room, we are not trained in being science communicators, and we spend a lot of time as trainees, learning about experimental design, rigorous scientific methods, mastering very complex technology, then doing data analysis, then writing the results, like painstaking process up to the point of creating that knowledge. Then job's done, off to the next one. So I think some scientists are actually a little bit afraid about talking to the media. So I want to know if you have any recommendations about how to break that barrier, and also what is potentially the most challenging moment that you've had, and how do you suggest overcoming those fears?
All right. So if you're afraid, and this doesn't apply just to scientists, right? I mean, if you're an artist, if you're a caregiver, I mean, you have things that other people who have not gone through your experience know. So first of all, appraise what you know, the distinctiveness of what you know, and do communicate it. If you're afraid, the best thing I would say is go and do it. I mean, face the fear and accept that most likely that fear will dominate you the very first times. Yeah, you're gonna stumble, you're gonna mumble, you're gonna say stupid things, you're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. By the way, even the best scientists do it. I mean, and those who are well seasoned in science communication. So go for it. The other things I would mention is try to talk to someone who has gone through that process, right? And try to gain first-hand experience, and try to ask for specific applicable tips rather than overarching very general notions about what to do. So I think that those are a few things. Some universities have programs that teach you about science communication, but certainly more systematic efforts should be done, and it would be fantastic to incorporate this as part of the official curricula, whereby scientists are trained. Because if we believe that really getting the results out there to those who are not scientists is part of what we have to do, then it sounds a little bit paradoxical that the official syllabi and programs are not giving room to that.
Great. Thank you so much for your thorough answer. And we have a question in the back, I believe.
Hi there. I just have a question for you. What are some reflective questions you would ask yourself as a scientist just to prepare yourself for miscommunication with journalism?
Thank you for that very, very good question. First, I would ask someone who's not me to spot all the fancy and needlessly long words that I'm prone to using, basically, right? All the technical jargon, it can and should be removed. The fear that we have is that, well, this term is so precise and it captures this nuance and this nuance. Well, sometimes you can preserve the nuance at the expense of intelligibility. So that's one thing. Have someone go through who doesn't know anything about it and scan those terms. Brevity, that's another thing. Try to see if you can find more and more concise ways of saying those things that you've sort of become accustomed to communicating in a certain, probably needlessly long way. Structure. Have a clear sense of, if it's a presentation that you're doing or an interview, how you're going to frame the question, how you're going to develop it, and how you're going to wrap it up. And if it's something more dynamic, make sure you have your 2 take-home messages clear in your mind, so that no matter whether the interview takes 5 minutes or 20 minutes, you make sure that those 2 ideas that you wanted to get across are part of what you got to say.